I want to share with you a real story that actually happened. The author still has doubts about what happened. I will tell this mystical story on behalf of the narrator, and so let's begin. All of this happened almost 30 years ago. My son was very sick. From the time he was born until he was 5 years old, we literally lived in hospitals. The problems were kidney problems. We tried, treated, and cared for the child as best we could. Once, after another hospitalization and discharge home, my grandmother suggested that we go to an old grandmother who cures with herbs and mysterious spells. Well, yes, it even came to that. Even though we're believers, not fans, I was getting really desperate. Anyway, no treatment was working. We hadn't been discharged from the hospital yet, so I decided to go. I thought it couldn't get any worse. At most, I'd lose time. Well, I had never dealt with grandmothers before. I had only seen advertisements and heard about one healer who lived in our neighborhood. Matthew the healer was his name. He was pretty famous. There were no advertisements. There were just rumors about him. And the truth was that he could do a lot of things and heal people from terrible diseases. Anyway, I packed up and left. We drove into the territory. Behind a high concrete fence was a huge black brick house. The situation looked a bit grim. Two guys met me on the terrace and led me down a long hallway to Matthew's room, where he was hosting guests. There was nothing unusual there either, except that it was gloomy and had a lot of strange souvenirs. Otherwise, just the usual furniture, tables, chairs, and modern fittings. No candles or other magical paraphernalia. And Matthew turned out to be an ordinary-looking man, in ordinary clothes, moderately well-fed, broad-shouldered. I stand on the threshold, and without even asking anything, he says to me from the threshold, "It's about you. The child has nothing to do with it. Bring me a 3-liter jar of water and 12 church candles. I'll help you." To be honest, I was a bit taken aback. I really didn't have time to say anything but hello. And that's how he felt about me. I walked out of the gate and went looking for a place to buy a jar. On the way, I saw a well with water that was still standing in the private sector. I thought I would fill it on the way back, so I wouldn't have to carry it with me. I bought a jar at the local store and went to the church to buy candles. In the church, right at the entrance, there was an icon painting workshop. There was a girl in a scarf, and not far from her was a priest, fussing about something. When I approached the girl and asked her to give me 12 candles, the priest, who was nearby, heard me, and he asked me a question. "Why do you need 12? I don't know why he paid attention to me or why he came up to me, but nevertheless, he did it, and for some reason I told him everything honestly, that I came to the local witch doctor, and he sent me for candles, and that my son was sick, and the priest talked me out of going to Matthew. "You better pray for your son here, daughter." "And I'll pray. And you go and light a candle for the health of a good, kind man, you know. It's better that way, for you and for your son. Don't go to sorcerers and psychics. They're not from God. Don't take sin on your soul." The priest spoke at length and persuasively. And I listened. I did everything he said. I said the only prayer I knew. I placed a candle for Linda's health. She was the best worker in our shop. Linda is a very nice woman, good-natured, cheerful, and fair. She always helped. If anything, she could stand up for anyone in front of her superiors. The workers respected her. I can't say why I remembered Linda at that moment. I knew a lot of good people, but then I remembered her and lit a candle for her health. Then, after saying goodbye and thanking the bishop, I went home. I left the jar there in the church. The next day, I had to go to work. I always went to work instead of someone else's shift because, at that time, I really needed the money. My son was gradually recovering. We were discharged from the hospital, and I wanted to leave him with my grandmother. She always helped us, so I left, and I got terrible news at work. Linda died yesterday. She had a sudden heart attack, but it was very strange. Since she was young and healthy, How could this happen? Then I felt as if a bucket of ice water had been poured on me. Yesterday, I lit a candle in the church for Linda's health. It's been on my mind for a long time. Yeah, and sometimes I still think about it. I just can't forget. It's a strange coincidence, don't you think? They say it's the sorcerer's way of getting back at me for not coming to him. Nonsense, I agree. But it's still a little unsettling. And why I thought of Linda, I don't know. It's weird. My son stopped getting sick after that, by the way. Maybe he's outgrown it. Maybe our combined efforts with Grandma and the doctors finally worked. However, after everything that happened then, 30 years ago, I changed my attitude toward everything strange and unexplainable. I now realize that there are things that are beyond our comprehension and habitual view of life. Although maybe it's a coincidence, believe it or not, it really is. I really needed to share, as they say, to lighten my soul. And what do you, dear subscribers, think about all this? Write your opinion or a similar story in the comments, and I'll read it.